Hey heroes, welcome to another uncanny episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is sponsored in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to contribute and vote in monthly polls, then you can sign up for an amount of your choosing over at patreon.com/MaryMarvelate. The link is in the description below along with other places you can find me. For this week's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the Imperial Guard, a legion of elite, superpowered champions loyal to the ruler of the intergalactic Shi'ar Empire. But before we dig into some of the individual members, let's take a brief look at the Shi'ar in general. Historically, the Shi'ar have commanded the largest empire in the known universe, eclipsing both of their closest rivals, the Kree and the Skrulls. It eventually took the unification of those two races under a single emperor to equal the Shi'ar in galactic power. The Shi'ar race is an avian species who possessed more bird-like traits in the distant past. The loss of these features has been attributed to the Xorrians, an ancient race which once claimed to be the common ancestor of every humanoid race in the universe. While such a bold claim does seem suspect, it's also been determined that the Shi'ar share a distant ancestry with another humanoid species, the Spartoi. In either case, it's been reported that Xorrian science was used to strengthen the Shi'ar race, making them more humanoid and ridding most of them of their wings in the process. As a result of this, modern Shi'ar possess both mammalian and avian traits. For example, they give birth to live young and produce milk to nurture them, but have feathers instead of hair and lightweight bones. They are also considerably stronger than their more avian ancestors, commonly able to lift around 2,000 pounds and possessing 20 times the endurance of an average Earth human. The beginnings of their empire can be traced back to an incident in which several divided planets in the Andromeda Galaxy joined forces to combat an alien threat. As the dominant race in this alliance, the Shi'ar ruled their collective culture from their homeworld Shandalar, commonly known as the Eyrie. The fledgling empire was founded under the tenets of the Shi'ar religion and the worship of Sharra and K'ythri. According to myth, these two gods were forced to marry, but in doing so found strength and love. With this parable as their guiding principle, the Shi'ar traveled the universe, expanding their empire by forcefully marrying other worlds and cultures into it. Leadership of the empire was traditionally passed down family lines, with the emperor or empress earning the title Magister or Magistrix respectively. Over the following millennia, the Shi'ar expanded across the known universe, creating an intergalactic empire and ruling over 1 million planets. One such world to be married to the Shi'ar Empire was Strontia, a planet of powerful warriors whose superhuman abilities were psionically fueled by their own self-confidence. As a culture, the Strontians valued honor and duty above all else, and so when the Shi'ar saved them from a deadly disease known as the Wraith Plague, the Strontians pledged their eternal loyalty to the Empire's throne. The Magister who facilitated this was eventually succeeded by his son, Chakar, and it was during his rule that the first Imperial Guard was formed. This was done in response to a universal threat, a Shi'ar outlaw named Shi'ar who had been endowed with the destructive power of the Phoenix Force. Each race within the Empire was given the opportunity to offer their most powerful warrior, and the Strontians were no different. They trained many young candidates, one of which was a noble cadet by the name of Kubark. However, Emperor Chakar tested the candidates' loyalty to the Shi'ar by commanding them to execute the Strontian Council of Elders. The Elders, it seems, knew this would happen, but also knew that their entire star system would be destroyed if the cadets proved disloyal to the Magister. As their most promising candidate, Kubark was told this by the Elders, and thus was the one to carry out this duty. As a result, he was selected to have his already considerable abilities enhanced to a level that would make him one of the mightiest warriors in the universe. While still powered by his own self-confidence, as long as he believed in himself, he could lift over 100 tons, fly faster than the speed of light, fire beams of heat from his eyes, create freezing temperatures with his breath, see through solid objects, and even survive in the vacuum of space. The Strontians gave him a new name in reference to this level of power, Lal K. However, most know him by that name's direct translation, Gladiator. He and the first Imperial Guard were soon dispatched to defeat the rogue Shi'ar. Even with the power of the Phoenix, Shi'ar was no match for Gladiator and soon met his end. Nonetheless, the trail of destruction he'd left in his wake was considerable, and the Shi'ar came to regard the Phoenix Force itself as a universal threat, referring to it in some writings as the Falcon Force. Furthermore, despite Gladiator's undying loyalty to the Empire, the planet Strontia was later destroyed under unrevealed circumstances. By the modern day, centuries after the foundation of the Imperial Guard, only 2 Strontians are known to have survived, Gladiator himself and his cousin Zenith. In more recent years, Gladiator did also have a son named Kubark, although the identity of the boy's mother remains unconfirmed. Other members of the original Imperial Guard include Magic, Mentor, and Quasar, each one having no connection to the mutant, the Eternal, or the human with the same name, respectively. Magic, as the name implies, was an accomplished sorceress and could use mysticism to create holographic illusions. Mentor had superhuman intelligence and could process vast amounts of information instantaneously. Quasar, eventually renamed Neutron, could absorb electromagnetic energy to increase his strength. As the most powerful and staunchly loyal to the throne, Gladiator was appointed their leader, earning him the title of Praetor. It's unclear whether or not any of these individuals were as long-lived as Gladiator, but any who did perish or retire were replaced by either clones or successors who took over the same codename. In the meantime, many more Imperial Guardians from various species were also added to the roster over the centuries. Electron was a member of the Shi'ar race who could generate an electromagnetic charge within his own body and release it as bolts of energy. This was similar to Tempest, later renamed Flashfire, who could supercharge his body with bioelectricity and shoot lightning. Oracle had various telepathic abilities, including mind reading, thought projection, and mental bolts. Hobgoblin could alter his size and shape and even mimic the abilities of creatures he transformed into. Starbolt had a body composed of unidentified energy resembling fire, which he could concentrate and shoot from his hands. Impulse was also a being of pure energy, but he required a special containment suit to maintain a humanoid form and could fire concussive bolts of this energy from his visor. Smasher could absorb ambient cosmic energy to enhance his strength, and also wore a pair of living goggles called exospecs, which allowed him to temporarily download additional abilities, although only one power could be active at any given time. Titan, fittingly enough, could grow to gigantic size and back to normal at will. Scintilla, conversely, who was originally known by a name that I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say anymore, could shrink to 1/20th of her normal size of 5'1". Fang was a member of the Lupak species who had heightened strength, speed, agility, and hyper-keen animal-like senses. Nightside could generate a cloak of darkness to enshroud opponents, pulling them into a nightmarish void. And Astra could alter her body's molecular density to become intangible and pass through solid objects. It was this sizable lineup of Imperial Guardians who were present when the group first encountered Earth's mutant heroes, the X-Men, and so let's take a step back to explain the circumstances surrounding those events. You see, during the Marvel Age, the Shi'ar Magister, Deken Neramani, sought to use a powerful artifact called the M'Kraan Crystal to seize total control over the entire universe. According to myth, this massive gem was gifted to the god K'ythri on the day of his wedding to Sharra as a symbol of their union. However, it also contained a nexus of all realities with the potential to destroy the known cosmos if not kept closed by the crystal itself. Daken's sister, Princess Lilandra Neramani, opposed the Magister's use of such a dangerous object and was branded a traitor because of it. Gladiator cared deeply for the princess, but was honor-bound to remain loyal to her brother, and so in order to oppose Daken's mad scheme, she enlisted the aid of the X-Men, leading to a battle with the Imperial Guard. The heroic mutants were also aided by the Starjammers, a band of space pirates led by Cyclops' father, Corsair. Despite the Imperial Guard's considerable forces, it was ultimately the X-Men and the Starjammers who were victorious. Because Gladiator's powers are directly tied to his level of self-confidence, his defeat here may be indicative of his feelings towards the whole situation with Lilandra and Daken. Regardless, during the battle, Emperor Daken was thrown into the M'Kraan crystal itself and overwhelmed by what he saw within, leaving him comatose. As a result, Lilandra was able to succeed him as the new Magistrix, making her the rightful ruler and protectee of the Imperial Guard. Ironically, during this conflict, it was the Shi'ar's old enemy, the Phoenix, who prevented the M'Kraan crystal from wiping out all of reality. During this time, the Phoenix Force had taken human form, impersonating the X-Man, Jean Grey, by taking a piece of her soul and sealing the true Jean away. This, however, is what led to another clash between the Shi'ar and the X-Men when the supposed Jean was corrupted and became the Dark Phoenix. After witnessing the destruction of the Dabari star system, the Shi'ar recognized the Phoenix Force and determined that this threat needed to be neutralized once again. In order to save the supposed Jean Grey's life, Professor Xavier challenged the Shi'ar to a duel of honor that would decide her fate. Thus, the X-Men battled the Imperial Guard again, this time on the blue area of Earth's moon, home of the Watcher. Due to the cosmic importance of these events, this battle was also overseen by representatives of the Kree and Skrull empires. During the contest, Gladiator battled the X-Man Colossus, and while the metal mutant was mighty, he was soon defeated by the Strontian Superman. In the end, however, it was Phoenix who sacrificed itself to stop the fighting when it allowed its mortal form to be destroyed. There were several Imperial Guardians who were present during this conflict, but not the previous one, so let's take a moment to look at those. Manta had infrared vision and could use her life energy to generate a blinding flash of either blue or white light. Hussar could use her bioelectricity to disrupt a target's nervous system, which she typically channeled through her neuro whip to paralyze opponents. Earthquake, as you might have guessed, could psionically induce tremors beneath the surface of a planet. And War Star was actually two individuals, B'ni and Cecile, with a mechanized symbiotic relationship. While Cecile was much larger and stronger, B'ni was able to deliver an electrical shock to opponents with a touch. Of course, the elite guards that we've mentioned so far are still only a fraction of the total number of enforcers under the Shi'ar Empire. In addition to the elite corps that serve directly under Gladiator, there are a number of other divisions called Borderers, which enforce Shi'ar law and aid the governors of conquered planets. These teams each typically have a praetor of their own, like the Shi'ar Chakar. His guardsmen included Binder, Quill, and Voltor, each of whom could fire a different kind of energy from their hands. Other Borderers included Webwing, whose tentacles could secrete a powerful narcotic sedative, and Blackthorn, who could communicate with and command plant life like himself. Those two are really only noteworthy for being part of a conspiracy to overthrow Lilandra and install her sister Deathbird as the new Magistrix. Other Imperial Guardsmen involved in this included Fang, Quasar, Hussar, and Warstar. They reported to another of Deathbird's loyalists, Admiral Lord Samadar, who attempted to destroy the Earth but was exposed and arrested by Gladiator. As part of her conspiracy, Deathbird also allied with another alien race, the Brood. As a result, one of her loyalists, Fang, was infected with a Brood warrior embryo that transformed him into one of them. This Fang was soon killed by Wolverine, but would later be replaced by another of his kind. Of course, his successor was nearly identical to the original, as his species, the Lupak, reproduced through cloning. While this was the first notable replacement that we on Earth became aware of, it is far from the only one. As it turns out, the Shi'ar have an entire training academy on Chandalar specifically to prepare potential successors for various Imperial Guard members. These candidates are each trained to adopt a specific mantle, generally based on their race, and are referred to as sub-guardians. Gladiator and his elite Imperial Guard, conversely, are known as Super Guardians. However, it should be noted that taking over the mantle of another is not the only way to be inducted into the Imperial Guard. For example, at one point the Super Guardians, Oracle and Flashfire, originally Tempest, decided to retire from active duty and get married. Desiring a spot on the team, a warrior with precognitive abilities named Delphos volunteered for a dangerous mission on a frontier moon. After successfully quashing the rebellion there, Delphos took Oracle's place on the Imperial Guard, but did not adopt her identity. That was probably all for the best, since Flashfire apparently did something to ruin his relationship, causing them to break up. As a result, both of them returned to the Guard, and Oracle later served alongside Delphos, combining their powers. Another noteworthy Guardian is the Kree warrior Manel, known by the codename Commando. As the only recorded Kree Super Guardian, he was conscripted into the Imperial Guard after the Shi'ar attempted to annex the remains of the Kree Empire. This was in the aftermath of Operation Galactic Storm, in which the Kree were devastated by a nega-bomb that allegedly obliterated over 90% of their empire. Naturally, the Kree would not remain under Shi'ar rule forever, as various rogue factions emerged, and their leader, the Supreme Intelligence, eventually resurfaced. Nonetheless, Commando remained loyal to the Imperial Guard after learning that the Supreme Intelligence itself was responsible for the nega-bomb. This was all part of a plan to jumpstart Kree evolution, and Manel was one of the survivors to be affected by the bomb's radiation, enhancing his strength and intellect. He ultimately regarded Gladiator and the others as friends and continued to serve the Shi'ar Empire. Besides Fang, another notable Super Guardian to have been replaced more than once is Smasher. As briefly mentioned earlier, each Smasher wore a pair of living goggles, the Exospecs, which generated an armored spacesuit and provided access to an Exo database via an accompanying artificial intelligence. In addition to standard powers like enhanced strength and flight, Smashers are able to download additional abilities, but these are limited to one at a time, and prolonged use will eventually drain the Exospecs of power and potentially harm the wearer. The first known Smasher was named Vril Rock, and he was present for the Imperial Guard's first two encounters with the X-Men. He was later with Empress Lilandra when she found Professor Xavier being possessed by his parasitic alien twin sister, Cassandra Nova. There is a long story there, but don't worry, I intend on covering that in more detail eventually. Lilandra sent Smasher to warn the X-Men, but he barely escaped and crash-landed on a farm in Iowa. His damaged exospecs soon repaired themselves, but left behind an unnoticed fragment. Meanwhile, Cassandra Nova used Xavier's telepathic powers to mentally influence Lilandra. As a result, Lilandra sent Gladiator and the Imperial Guard to eliminate the X-Men, claiming it was the Earth's mutants who were infected. There were a number of Guardians involved in this attack that I haven't mentioned yet, but I'll go over them a little bit later in the video. In any event, Smasher was ultimately found and successfully warned Gladiator that the Magistrix had been compromised by Cassandra Nova. While her mental powers were able to stop even Gladiator, this threat was ultimately defeated by the X-Men. Sometime later, the Imperial Guard clashed with another powerful mutant, Gabriel Summers, aka Vulcan. The brother of Cyclops and Havoc, he wanted revenge for the death of his mother, who had been killed by D'Ken during his time as Magister. In the ensuing battle, a number of Super Guardians were killed, including Vril Rock, the first known Smasher. Gladiator ultimately defeated and captured Vulcan, but we'll talk more about what happened with him another day. Vril Rock was succeeded by Salak Tur, but his tenure was short-lived as he was killed by the Inhuman Karnak during the War of Kings. Other Smashers stepped up to fill the role, but were similarly unsuccessful. Meanwhile, the fragment of Vril Rock's eyepiece that had been left behind on Earth repaired itself, growing into a fully functional set of exospecs. These goggles were then found by Isabel Kane, or Izzy, a woman with a heroic lineage. You see, during World War II, her grandfather, Dan Kane, battled Nazis as the boisterous Captain Terror. Izzy grew up hearing his unbelievable stories, and he always encouraged her to follow her passions and to stand up for freedom. However, after her mother passed away, she dropped out of college to help her father on the family farm, much to Dan's dismay. While her astronomy degree remained unfinished, Izzy maintained her fascination with outer space. Then one day she could hear the exospecs she found speaking to her, telling her to put them on. Upon doing so, she was endowed with a Smasher uniform and rocketed to the stars while her grandfather watched in quiet approval. Passing through a Shi'ar stargate, she was transported to the throne world Chandalar, where she met Gladiator and became the very first human sub-guardian. She returned to Earth a month later, and her father was shocked to learn that what Dan had claimed about her departure was true. Unfortunately, in the time that she'd been gone, her grandfather's health had taken a turn for the worse. But before he passed, Dan gave Izzy one last gift, a way to contact his old ally, Captain America. Joining the Avengers, Izzy later returned to space to aid the Imperial Guard against a planet-destroying race known as the Builders. During the battle, the Super Guardian Smasher Gallon was killed, and Izzy was invited to take his place in the Imperial Guard. Now, we've already gone over the names and abilities of the various members of the Imperial Guard who debuted in the group's earliest appearances. So before we end the video, let's briefly look at the other members who have been introduced since then. Ark had the ability to build up and project bioelectricity from within his own body. Blacklight and White Noise were a pair of siblings who shared a neural link and have claimed to be the children of Deathbird. Whereas the former could discharge dark energy from his eyes, the latter produced a sonic scream. Blimp had a body composed of biohelium within a specially designed spacesuit. Cosmo had super strength, enhanced durability, and flight, and may have been a member of the same species as Neutron, the Stygian. Fader was able to turn invisible by using light refraction to hide within the electromagnetic spectrum. G-Type was composed of living solar plasma and could focus his energy into heat beams capable of reaching 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Glom was capable of consuming virtually any form of matter or energy. Hardball had powerful legs that allowed him to leap with considerable force, and an agile, rubbery body that could easily bounce off surfaces and objects. Mammoth was an elephant-like alien with super strength, although he appeared only briefly and so we have yet to see what he is really capable of. Monstra had 4 arms, enhanced strength, and heightened resistance to physical injury. Moondancer was an expert tracker who could pursue her targets across entire galaxies. Neosaurus was a being with an artificial brain that could project itself into a series of reptilian exobodies. Narillary was a monstrous orange creature with enhanced strength. Onslaught, no not that one, had enhanced speed, strength, durability, and was an experienced unarmed fighter. Plutonia was a purple energy being that could alter her density and produce an unidentified form of radiation. Schism could split into 2 separate beings that could operate independently before rejoining. Solar Wind could project a wave of force from the center of his chest. Squarm was a sentient hive of tiny but highly intelligent worm-like creatures contained within a specially designed spacesuit. Stuff was an amoeboid biocomputer that could manipulate its pseudoplasm tentacles into various shapes and see through solid objects with its red eye. Voyager could open space warp portals to travel interstellar distances. Zenith, not to be confused with Gladiator's similarly named cousin, could absorb energy from opponents and channel it back towards them. And finally, Peter Quill, the legendary Star-Lord, was once drafted into the Imperial Guard by Gladiator, but left not long thereafter. Okay, that is all I've got for you this week, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it on your favorite social media. As always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where, for only $1 a month, you can get your name in these special thanks here, and vote in monthly polls that help decide what topics get covered on the channel. But that is indeed all I have time for this week, and so until next time, true believers, Excelsior!